Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
What are you doing? You. Okay, I will recover. I don't know how. I will recover. Dan. Oh, thank you. Okay. Dan is being a good co-host, partner, friend, brother in Christ, because he knows I'm a little down this morning. And
Yep.
So to explain what happened, because we're a fully transparent show, and I don't know if folks fully saw it, but to explain what happened, I thought we were about to press record, and Dan's like, "Oh, hold on a minute, I got to get something," and I didn't know, presses record and spins around in his chair. Okay, whew. That was good. That was what I needed. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And that allows me to say wholeheartedly, welcome to the MuseCast, everyone. We are so glad that you are here. That guy is Dan Kent. I am Shawna Boren. And today, while I am in mourning, we will find a way.
Why are you in mourning?
I don't want to talk about it.
It's good to talk about it.
Is it? Is that what
yes,
are you going to put me on? Okay. Well, my Lakers are out of the playoffs. They lost the Western Conference Finals.
They got swept.
I wasn't going to say that. But let me just say, I feel like to say they got swept, it really doesn't give a perfect picture of how close really this series was. These games were really close. And I just got to say, LeBron James, the man blows me away. He was incredible.
Amazing. Yep.
He was
amazing.
Incredible. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. He was worth the cost of admission.
Yeah.
For watching it for free on TV.
Right.
I don't think I could afford the admission to actually go see it, but yes,
right.
he was worth the time. I will watch him play in any playoff game because he really is amazing. Well, I have to say that the Denver Nuggets also beat the Timberwolves.
They did.
As of this date, I think it's the 27th, 28th of May, 2023.
It's the 23rd.
Oh, is it? Hold on, let me check. Oh yeah, maybe it's the 23rd.
Spin around once more.
I declare the 23rd of May, 2023, the MuseCast has officially set their hearts against the Denver Nuggets. That's all I'm saying. So.
Yeah. We're not. Yeah. The thing is though, would it be better for us if they won it all? Because it's our teams lost to the champions.
That's right.
However, we're not. No, we're petty on the MuseCast. And,
we are petty.
We're petty, and we're not. So I'm going to say go Heat. Actually, I like the Miami Heat as well. So I'm good. I'm Dan, we should go to South Beach and do a MuseCast from South Beach.
It's a no-brainer. It's what
we got to do. Okay. While we make those plans, I do think. I think we had a pretty great speaker on Sunday, and I reached out and I said, "Hey, can we book this guy to be on the show on Tuesday?" And lo and behold, you got him here, Dan. You booked the talent. Thank you.
Well, it was. I didn't know what to expect. Hold on a second. Let me get my guest. Hold on a second.
Yeah, you got to get him.
All right, there he is. Here's the guest.
Welcome to
what is going on today? We're really goofy today. I don't know what it is.
Super goofy. I had 2 cups of coffee, so
did I. And I usually just have one, and so I think that might be it. Well, hey, so we are in this Unraveling Truth series, and I got to speak 2 days ago now on Was Jesus Crazy? And I was looking at C.S. Lewis's Lord, Liar, Lunatic trilemma, and I just noticed that not a lot of people have really spent a lot of time on the lunatic branch of that trilemma. And so I decided, given my history and my experience and my kind of graduate work that I've done, that I would kind of take a look at that. And so I asked the question, was Jesus crazy? And I literally looked at the DSM, which is the statistical kind of psychiatric diagnostic manual for diagnosing people with different potential mental illnesses. And I looked at what I thought were the three most likely candidates of, for diagnosing Jesus. And the first one was schizophrenia. Second one was bipolar disorder. And the third one was sociopathic personality disorder. I also talked briefly about why I don't like the word crazy and how it's kind of a trap that we can't get out of, where it doesn't matter what word we use. Eventually people will glom onto it and use it in a derogatory sort of way. And I think that's unavoidable, but it's also important to keep fighting against stigmatization of mental illnesses, especially mental illnesses where people don't have any say-so in them, in particular schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. And then, so then I argued basically that none of the best potential diagnoses for Jesus really apply in not in a clinically justified way. And so, given that, I feel like that third branch of Lewis's trilemma can be officially sealed off, unless we have some profound new discovery in the field of mental illness and diagnostics. As of right now, as of the best research and science that we have, Jesus doesn't come close to fitting any of the mental health diagnoses that we have. And so we have to say lunatic is not a valid branch. I went a step further, and I argued that not only was Jesus not crazy, but I argued that he was the only sane human ever. And I kind of really built on Greg's sermon the previous week, and I said that it's not God who needs reconciling or therapy, it's humanity, and it's always been humanity. And so, given that, the fact that Jesus is Lord, and the fact that the liar and lunatic branch can be officially closed, that leaves us with Lord. And if that's the case, we should orient ourselves to Jesus as the source and model and light of what sanity looks like. And I looked at what were the passages? Matthew 9:36, where Jesus sees the crowds and they're harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And I contrasted that with Matthew 4:16, which is a quote from Isaiah that talks about how humanity is living in this darkness. They're in this city in the shadow of death. In other words, they're in this traumatic, terrifying situation where they don't understand anything because it's dark. And that's us. And it describes us perfectly, because we do live completely in the dark most of the time. And it does feel like something catastrophic is always about to happen. And it makes us crazy. It makes us harassed and helpless. And we're running out of time and we're pressured. But behold, Isaiah says, a light has dawned. Right here in this dark, traumatic Babylon, there is now this light in Christ that we can orient ourselves to, and progressively, slowly, kind of become more and more sane, become more and more Christ-like, to live and dwell in that Christ-like sanity. And that was really sort of the gist of the sermon. And I have a bunch of stuff that I cut out, but that was sort of the gist of it. You can't say everything on it, but I hope that it did a couple things. I hope that it officially closes off that branch. I hope that it was respectful toward people who are suffering from mental illness. And I hope it also intrigued people to think about themselves and humanity and everything that we live in, contrasted with Jesus in a way that exalts Jesus as sort of the kind of the best objective that we could orient ourselves to for sanity. So that was it. What did you think of the sermon?
I want to preface what I thought of the sermon by saying, what happened on Sunday with you bringing forth was Jesus crazy is a perfect example of why I so appreciate our church and the plurality of voices that we bring forth, because I can honestly say you always bring a perspective that I had not thought of or pondered quite a bit. And so I'm really thankful for that. It's so great to continue to grow and learn and discover new things. And so I absolutely am so grateful for this perspective that you brought. And I want to also say that I really did appreciate, and it was evident, the care with which you were presenting this, because of your concern for those who struggle with various mental illnesses. That was very pastoral and caring, and I really appreciated that. I thought it was really beautiful. I loved the Matthew 4:16 passage. That is, harking back to the Isaiah passage, just like, behold, a light has dawned. How hopeful in the midst of it all. Behold, a light has dawned. And I love that that's kind of how you ended us. You put Jesus on the couch, and that was really fascinating. It was really fascinating, and it was a clever approach, and I got a lot from it. 3 of my takeaways of many things. We are not going to find sanity by continually doing the things that make us insane. I love that. It's like, have you ever heard about, if you're in a rut, like, you just keep doing what you've always done and you're going to stay in this rut. And so I thought that was so great. We cannot solve the madness from within. The madness. We need this outside source to come in, and that outside source is Jesus. That was chef's kiss. Much of the madness in this world is relational, and that is so true. Like, it's us as humans living in our madness and like pushing that on others. And so again, we need an outside source to come in and shine a light. And that light has dawned, and that light is Jesus. And so thank you for your sermon today, because we always want to give the person who delivered the sermon, if we have them on the show, we always want to give them space to include some things that they had to cut out, or dive in a little deeper to some points they didn't get to talk about as much as they needed or wanted to. So we are going to do that. But also, the perk of being one of the hosts of this show, Dan, is that you can kind of take some liberties with your time. We haven't had anyone write into us, really ticked off at you for what you said. So that's good. So we don't have anything to clean up there. And we actually haven't had a ton of questions, just a lot of appreciation for this perspective. And so, as my gift to you, because I'm feeling so generous in, my post-loss day of sadness, I am feeling generous. So as my gift to you, I want to say, take some space, take some time, and talk to us about what you didn't get to say, what you would have liked to have said a little bit more of, and just your ultimate, how would you want us to put a bow on this? Like, what is it that you want us to take home? I know you told us like some of your goals, but if you had to, tie it up in a pretty bow and present it, what would that look like?
Yeah. It's interesting. There's just a ton of stuff I cut out, but like, and you know how this is when you're doing a sermon, you're trying to, kind of like a sculptor with a block of stone, you're trying to chip around. You remove stuff so that you leave this solid thing, this objective, more pure and more clean. That's the goal. But the stuff that you chip away are just in piles around the outside. They don't have any coherence between them at all. A lot of times they're just scattered pieces. And so that's kind of the way I feel about this. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I just didn't have time, and so I had to cut it. And plus I thought it would be kind of distracting. But the language piece is just such an important part of it, like in terms of like stigma and stuff like that. And you're right. I do have such a heart, especially for the population of people who suffer from psychosis. I've just spent, literally thousands of hours sitting with people as they've experienced overwhelming hallucinations and delusions and stuff like that. And I care so much about that population. But the temptation is to sanitize our language, and the intention there is to, well, there's probably a lot of intentions there, but it's to fight against the stigmatization by sanitizing the language. And I totally understand that. But the trade-off there, the cost of that is that it really deadens language as a form of expressing our suffering. And a good example of this, and George Carlin is a comedian, and he's really played on this, and he's got a great bit where he talks about this. But right now we have post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a disorder that really emerged from the battlefield. And it has this long history going all the way back. Originally, when they first started to collect these symptoms of people, they started to collect symptoms in the Civil War in America, but it really became like a serious enterprise in World War I. And the symptoms were collected, and they called that collection of symptoms shell shock. And that's what they called it. And it was just like, what that is. When someone says you have shell shock, holy cow, I don't want that. And when you tell people I have shell shock, there's this immediacy to it. Like there's this, you can almost feel the pain of it, just by the label of it. By World War II, that had become, here's the problem, is it's hard to recruit soldiers when they could suffer from shell shock. And so there's this incentive to, maybe we could rename it battle fatigue, is what it became in World War II. Battle fatigue. Battle fatigue, and then by the Korean War, it became operational exhaustion, which is, that's just like way out there in the abstract world. And then now we call it post-traumatic stress disorder. It went from 2 short words to 4 long clinical words. And it's like, if I'm lamenting, shell shock captures my lament, whereas post-traumatic stress disorder, it's just this I feel like it's a new package of underwear. It's just this sterile kind of clean thing that doesn't really communicate anything. And we see that also in, like, if you're a victim, if somebody forces something, like forces sex on you, you've been raped. That's like the word that's what happened. But when we call it sexual assault, it's more user-friendly and it's more socially easier to talk about, but it doesn't capture that lament. And so that language piece is so important. And so that's the battle. It's like literally a war around these words, because you want to fight against the stigmatization, but you also want to keep the realness of what it is, so that people can use that language to lament properly. And so that's the first kind of discussion piece that I took out, but it's something that I care a lot about. And I hope that, it becomes, I hope it remains an important part of the discussion, I guess, is what I would say.
Sorry, I was unmuting myself. I love it. So I want you to go. I know these are like, maybe not like a streamline of thoughts, like in a perfect outline, and you described it perfectly. So let's just pick up each pile, Dan. And if I want to break in, I will, but I appreciate you giving me a moment, but just pick up each pile and go. You're good.
Sounds good. The other thing is a show and tell. And let's see, this is the reality of law. Okay, let's go. I guess I don't have it right there, but yeah. So I first encountered Lewis's trilemma in this book right here. And let's see. Oh, that's book 2. Here it is. Yeah, here it is. So this is my Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. You can see it's like falling apart. In fact, here, look at this. It's literally like I could fan it out. That's how, I mean, it's just a pile of pages at this point. But this book, after I graduated high school, a person in the church gave this to me because I kept harassing everybody with questions. And the church that I was saved in, they're kind of more pietist. They're really just about having faith, and not, they didn't really care so much about wrestling with all the intellectual stuff. But my friend Greg Gray gave me this, and I fell in love with this so much. And the reason why this is tattered so much is because I kept it in my busser apron as I was bussing tables. And I would gather all the dirty plates into the bin. I would take the bin back to the dish room. And then I'd go to the side station, and I would read a paragraph. And then I would think about that paragraph as I was bussing the next table. And so it got a little beat up, but this is what Lewis says. When you read the Gospels, you must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. And so this is the section where he talks about he's either a Lord, liar, or a lunatic. And he's responding to this claim that, Jesus wasn't God, but he's just a great moral teacher is what he was. And Lewis is like, he can't be a great moral teacher. And as a little sneak peek, my next sermon that I'm going to do that's scheduled is I'm going to talk about this very point, that was Jesus a good teacher? And I'm going to argue he's not a good teacher unless you believe that he is who the Gospels say he is. Otherwise, he's a terrible teacher. And that's sort of what Lewis's point. So really, all of this was Jesus crazy conversation really kind of grounds the conversation about whether Jesus was a great teacher or not. In fact, as thoroughly as I feel like I was able to, just by using the DSM and stuff like that, show that it's not really plausible to say that Jesus was crazy, but that's still more plausible than saying that he was just a great teacher. And the reason for that is what I'm going to talk about in my next sermon. So that's the second part of the stuff that I cut out. The third kind of, and the third part that I cut out that I'll talk about is I really wanted to drill into the fact that we cannot, kind of what you were saying, we cannot solve the madness from within the madness. We really need this light to dawn on us from the outside. And there's so many things that we do here which are really important to do, and they're good, but they don't solve the madness. They kind of help what would you say, comfort us in the madness. They help relieve suffering, and they're important for us to engage in, but they themselves are not the solution to the madness. So for instance, we you look at the economic inequality in America and in the world, especially, that's something that as Christians, we need to set our hearts toward and work toward fixing the economic inequalities that we see in the world and the economic suffering that is caused by the systems that we use to kind of work and whatever. And so that's important to do. But it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that is the hope for the world, is to solve an economic problem. Solving the economic problem will not cure us from the madness, is what I would say. Because if you think about it, when someone wins the lottery, they have totally solved their economic problem. But what always happens is that money will fuel and exemplify and amplify whatever personality flaws that they have, whatever moral flaws they have, get amplified by that money. And so even though we need to fight against the economic inequality, that is not the solution. Another example is, we definitely need to build one another up, the Apostle Paul says, and that's important. And to help people understand their identity in Christ is really important. But things like self-esteem and positivity, that's not the solution to the madness that we're in. And we can see that pretty easy because you look at the United States of America, we have the highest ratings of self-esteem of any country in the world. And that's been the case for about 30 years. We rank highest in self-esteem, but we also rank highest in depression and anxiety. And so self-esteem and positive thinking is not the solution to our madness. Civic engagement, I think, is super important, and using political powers to leverage against the evils of the world, I think is a great thing for Christians to set their hearts toward. And we have a civic engagement team here at Woodland Hills where we think about this intentionally. Like, how can we use the Woodland Hills platform in a way that can help bring relief to the suffering of the people in our communities? And I think that is just central to faith lived out in the world. However, I would say that politics is not going to solve the madness that we're talking about. And you can see this with a simple thought experiment. If you think of the greatest political system ever, like maybe you think communism is the best political system ever. Great. Whatever it is, no matter how perfect you have it all planned out, if the people who are in that political system are greedy, violent, and lustful, it's not going to work. And likewise, it doesn't matter which political system you use, whether it's capitalism, socialism, or communism. All of those will work just fine if all of the citizens are Christ-like, if they are other-oriented, if they are loving, if they're charitable. And so at the heart of it, it's not the political system where our hope lies, even though we need to use it to help alleviate suffering in the world. By itself, it's not the solution. We need this light to dawn from the outside. And so, yeah, that's kind of the third big thing that I wanted to share. And then I just have one more thought. And that is, and this was sort of experimental, and I do want to keep thinking about this because it's kind of fun. I was thinking, if Jesus were to come back today, and he were to do the miracles, or he were to do miracles, would he do the same miracles that he did in the first century? And I started thinking, I don't think he would. I think he would have to do the opposite of what he did. He would have to reverse his miracles, because I would say, because everybody has plenty of bread. That's not our problem. The problem isn't that we need bread. The problem is that we need to share the bread. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, a lot of the bread that we have is just chock full of things that are not bread. And so, like high fructose corn syrup and things that are causing diabetes and suffering. And so it's almost as if Jesus would have to come and remove the things that are not bread from our bread. When he first came, he had to turn the water into wine for the celebration. Well, now everybody is so dopaminergically addicted to things. There's, drunkenness is at levels that, are higher than they were in the first century. All of our water is polluted. So it almost seems like he might have to do the opposite, where he might have to take all of the booze that we have in the world and turn it back into water so that we have clean water. And that's all very exaggerated, but it's a fun thought experiment to think about. And so those are some of the things that I never really considered talking about that, but it's a fun thing to think about alongside of this. But those are the things that I took out.
Wow, Dan, I can see how you had to, like you say, kind of like etch away at the structure that you were trying to present. And so I'm glad that we had an opportunity for you to share those with us. And like I said earlier, we have yet to have any kind of responses that we feel like we need to address. And so I think this is a good time. And you may feel like, do I even have a nugget? I'm sure you have something, right. But it is a good time to move into nugget time. And I'm going to think a little bit more about your thought experiment, because I hadn't considered that. Like, if Jesus were to come today, what would he do? Would we have to undo or do the opposite of the miracles he did when he was first here? That's an interesting thought. So, people can chew on that for a bit. I still think he would feed those that need to be fed, but I think it would be proper food, not things that would further contaminate their bodies. But anyway, that's an interesting. See, now you have me just pondering and thinking of that. So what we're going to do now, folks, we're going to officially again thank Dan for his sermon, for his message. And thank you again for the care by which you showed when you addressed these topics. And thank you for shedding a different perspective and light on Jesus. I think we either go belief or non-belief. And that doesn't, like, not everyone falls in one of those two camps. Some of, so I think it was great to shine a light on this third aspect of the trilemma. And then you also, guys, today got like just an ever so slight sneak peek into a future sermon coming within the series. So that's going to be really good. I'm curious about that as well. We are still in Unraveling Truth. And so we do invite you to continue to tune in. I think we have a discussion coming up, right? With Greg and Bill, maybe. Is that true?
I think that's right.
Point? Yeah. So there'll be some more sermons. There'll be some, discussions. And so, we're going to definitely be drilling in. And so we encourage you to continue to tune in and then circle back with Dan and I, because we will continue the conversations here on the MuseCast.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like it's nugget time, Dan. I feel like I've like set the table really well. I kind of filibustered a bit. So, because I always like you to go first for
Oh,
your
okay.
nugget.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine.
Because honestly, I'm just going to let you know right now, my nugget is just, I just stole something from your sermon. So,
Oh, good. That's good. Well, I think
Yeah.
the only nugget I would say is that if I guess this is the importance of having Jesus at the center, is that that's where our just to be able to remember that that's where our hope is. It's really good to do all sorts of things in the world, and there's a lot of things in the world that are good for people and help people, and we have to be careful not to put our hope in those things, because ultimately the hope is the light that dawns on us from outside of the madness. And so what I see is that a lot of times people will go the opposite direction. So the goal is to bring the light of Christ into the madness of the world. And that's what I think transformational spirituality looks like, is when you take that light from outside and transform the inside. I think what my fear is that I feel like the church, and I mean the church, the big church, like the worldwide church, has a tendency to, instead of transforming the insanity spiritually, they tend to spiritualize the insanity. And so, for instance, that's what I think about, spiritualized violence, where Christian nationalism a lot of times is just this, making military and violence sort of part of your own spirituality, and that's just spiritualizing the insanity of the world. But you can spiritualize all sorts of things. You can spiritualize passivity, where you're not doing anything, and let go, let God is what spiritualized passivity looks like. And I think that understanding and just remembering that we are in this womb of madness, we are in this realm of insanity, and the only hope we have comes from outside of this realm, I hope will help people from spiritualizing the things in this insane world, and instead looking outside of the world for the light shining in. And I know that's very abstract, and I guess articulating that is really, I think I have to keep it abstract, because I think to articulate it is so personal, because the madness and the insanity affects us each in profoundly unique ways. And so so I'm going to keep it abstract like that, and but I hope it helps anyway. That's the risk, is if you don't get specific, a lot of times it's not helpful for people. But this is one where I don't think I can get too specific, and so you really have to bring your own life and your own identity and your own personality and your own history to it, and wrestle with it on your own, is what I would say. So that's my nugget. You know what, though? I forgot to do the nugget dance. So all right.
There we go. Now it's officially a nugget.
Yes, right.
All right. So my nugget stems from, I'm holding up my Bible. My nugget stems from Matthew 4:16. Because like I said, I just love that you shared that verse. I just want to read it quick. The people who lived in the dark have seen a great light, and a light has come upon those who lived in the region and in the shadow of death. And I just want to remind us, as we are in this womb of madness, as Dan so aptly described our world, because that is so true. And it is uniquely different for each of us. We are living in a dying world. I mean, that's just, the nature of things. However, we have hope in the light that has come. And as we are trying to navigate our way in this space with all of our various victories and defeats and traumas and joys, I think the thing to remember is partnership with the one who shines a light in that darkness, the one who shines light into the shadows. Partnership, meaning, yes, we rely on Jesus absolutely as our source. He is the center of it all. And also we grab onto those things that are presented to us that help us find our way, not relying on those things, because that kind of stuff can fail. as Dan told us throughout his sermon. However, there are like it's when you're sick, going to a doctor, and depending on what kind of illness, that will determine the kind of doctor that you go to. And we are thankful for that, and we utilize that. And at the same time, we grip on to the garment of Jesus, for him to bring us our ultimate hope, our ultimate healing, our ultimate joy, our ultimate life, our ultimate resurrection, because we do know that things around us are decaying and dying. And so I think of partnership. And I think that's, in my own words, that's what you beautifully described when you were talking about coming out of this madness and needing an outside source. We need to partner with that source, which is Jesus. So that's my nugget.
That's really well said. I love the hat tip to the lady who grabs Jesus's garment, and because that just so beautifully represents the desperation for hope in the madness, especially when you've been victimized or hurt by the madness of the world, and just that this is my only hope. If I can just touch his garment. I mean, that's how desperate we are in this world, and that's beautiful.
Yeah. Amen. Well, thank you, my friend. I really enjoyed it. Appreciate the conversation as well. And thank you guys for tuning in. And hopefully we'll get to chat with some of you all later on when the show airs, 4 p.m. on YouTube, also via podcast. If you have questions, we can always circle back. So send them in. The link will be posted. MuseCast@whchurch.org. Have a great rest of your week, guys, and we will see you next Tuesday.